Mangwanani Malelepo Vukenjani Klekwas Vanave Africa. Welcome to Africa Good Morning, the news and current affairs show bringing you everything you need to know happening on the African continent and beyond. It is a Friday and you're joined by Ashwin Berry and Diana Master. Good morning, Diana.
Good morning, Ashwin, and a very good morning to you, Africa, and happy Friday. And it just so happens that today is International Arbor Day. So particularly the planting, care and conservation of them. Trees not only bring an aesthetic beauty to our world, but are important to our very survival. They not only provide shelter for many species of birds, animals and insects, but they are also the lungs of our planet. Not to mention the fact that products derived from them, such as paper, are vital to modern society. Therefore, this is an important holiday to bring attention to the importance of trees to our way of life. Let's take a look at International Arbor Day.
Today is Friday, the 29th of April, and these are the top stories. Nigeria outlaws ransom payments, kidnapping now punishable by death. The Nigerian Senate has passed a bill imposing jail terms of at least 15 years for paying a ransom to free someone who has been kidnapped and made the crime of abduction punishable by death in cases where victims die. Opeyemi Bamidele, chair of the Senate's Judiciary, Human Rights and Legal Committee, told the Senate on Wednesday that making ransom payments punishable with lengthy jail sentences would discourage the rising spate of kidnapping and abduction for ransom in Nigeria, which is fast spreading across the country. Armed gangs operating mostly in northeastern and north-central states of Nigeria have for more than a decade spread terror through kidnappings for ransom, targeting students, villagers and motorists on highways. They have also killed thousands of people. President Muhammadu Buhari's government has already classified the armed kidnapping gangs known locally as bandits as terrorists this year, but that has not stemmed the kidnappings, now almost a daily occurrence.
Now, Moderna files for U.S. authorization of COVID shot for kids under 6. Moderna Inc. said yesterday that it asked U.S. regulators to authorize its COVID-19 vaccine for children under the age of 6, which would make it the first shot against the coronavirus available for those under 5 years old. The COVID-19 vaccine from Pfizer Inc. and BioNTech SE is authorized for children 5 and older, but their trial results for 2 to 4-year-olds showed a weaker immune response than in adults, forcing the study to be extended to a third dose. Pfizer has said that data would come in April. Moderna Chief Medical Officer Paul Burton said in an interview that there is no other vaccine, no other therapy that these little kids can have. Moderna released trial data in March showing that its vaccine was safe and generated a similar immune response in young children as for adults, which was the goal of the study. Burton did not disclose a time frame for when the U.S. Food and Drug Administration was expected to consider the authorization request. So far, 28% of U.S. children in the 5 to 11 age group are fully vaccinated.
Now in our next story, man sentenced to death for stealing presidential escort car. A man sentenced to death in Nairobi for stealing a presidential escort car has filed an appeal. Agre Odiambo Achieng was sentenced to death on April 13 for robbing Chief Inspector of Police David Machui of his BMW 735 vehicle in Utwala, Nairobi. On Monday, Achieng filed an appeal with the court through his lawyer Moses Angaya, outlining his reasons for objecting to the sentence. He claims that the magistrate misapplied the law by failing to take into account the gaps in the prosecution's identification of the main suspect in the crime. Andayi also stated that the magistrate failed to establish that there was sufficient evidence to support the charges of robbery with violence and handling stolen goods. He expressed his displeasure that, despite finding the witness testimonies contradictory, Judge Andayi still convicted him. The learned trial magistrate erred in law in subjecting the prosecution case to a stand of proof below the usual beyond reasonable doubt standard, as the eviction was against the weight of the evidence adduced, said Achieng.
Moving over, in Mozambique, authorities detained 57 terrorist suspects in 2021. The Mozambican authorities detained 57 people in 2021 on suspicion of involvement in terrorism in the Cabo Delgado province in the north of the country, Attorney General Beatrice Buchili has announced. In connection with terrorist activity, 57 individuals were detained, of whom 46 were men and 11 were women, ranging in age from 19 to 65 years of age. Of those detained, 54 were Mozambican, 1 Tanzanian, 1 Ethiopian, and 1 Burundian, she said. The fight against terrorism presupposes the prevalence of preventive measures over reactive ones involving different segments of society, such as final institutions and non-financial entities, religious denominations, community structures, and civil society organizations, Beatrice Buchili explained. Meanwhile, institutions of justice opened 354 criminal cases for terrorism in 2021 against 13 in 2020, an increase of 341, the Attorney General reported. Beatrice Buchili noted that terrorism is normally associated with other forms of organized and complex crime, such as drug trafficking, illegal exploitation of natural resources, and crimes of an economic and financial nature.
Africa seeing uptick in COVID cases driven by South Africa. This is according to the WHO. Africa had been experiencing a lull in COVID cases, with the WHO earlier this month pointing to the longest running decline in weekly infections on the continent since the start of the pandemic. But last week, cases started to pick up in South Africa, the country that has recorded the most infections and deaths in Africa to date. And health authorities there are monitoring for signs of a fifth infection wave. This new week, COVID-19 cases and deaths on the continent increased for the first time after a decline of more than 2 months for cases and 1 month for deaths. Benido Ipouma, Director for Communicable and Non-Communicable Diseases at the WHO's Africa office, told an online news conference. All right, that brings us to the end of the first half of our stories. More news after the break.
Welcome back to Africa Good Morning. Let's now take a look at the second half of our top stories. Starting off in Malawi, Joshua Chisambele calls for Chakwera's apology after a police officer on his convoy kicked a pedestrian. Social commentator Joshua Chisambele is calling on President Lazarus Chakwera to apologize for the conduct of the police officer on one of the cars on his convoy who kicked a pedestrian. Chisambele is also calling for the firing of the police officer over what he describes as shameless, senseless, and a pure misconduct because the man he kicked did nothing wrong. The president must apologize to Malawians. We can't accept that kind of barbarity. You can't use people's taxes and abuse the most vulnerable in society, said Chisambele. Mneneri, as he is well known, continued that the man was walking the right side of the road and the security guard was in the wrong place. According to Chisambele's observation, the presidential motorcade was moving at unnecessary high speed, regardless that it was passing through a trading center. According to Chisambele, the only way the president can repair the damage is through issuing an apology and having the police officer disciplined.
Somalia Parliament picks new speaker amid security standoff. Somalia's lawmakers elected a new parliamentary speaker yesterday following a tense standoff between African Union peacekeepers and police, underscoring bitter divisions within Somalia's security forces exacerbated by delayed elections. On Wednesday, police loyal to President Mohamed Abdullahi Mohamed, usually known by his nickname Farmajo, turned away lawmakers attempting to enter the airport hangar where the vote was taking place, telling them it had been postponed. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Mohamed Hussein Roble, who has been locked in a power struggle with Mohamed for many months, had instructed peacekeepers to secure the venue to allow parliamentarians access, leading to confrontations at the gates witnessed by Reuters. Eventually, in the early hours of Thursday, lawmakers elected Sheikh Adan Mohamed Nur as the Speaker of the lower house, a veteran opposition figure analysts see as a pragmatic and moderate counterpoint to President Mohamed. The election of speakers in the Parliament and Senate are a key step in establishing the new government, which must be in place by 17 May if Somalia is to continue receiving budget support from the International Monetary Fund.
Now, in our next story, scrapping Ghana's rape examination fee, Ghanaian actor Ama K. Abebrese has started a petition pushing for the government to scrap the medical fees associated with the medical examination needed to determine if someone has been raped. During her campaigning, Ama found out that there is already a law in place in Ghana that prohibits sexual assault victims for paying for their medical exams, but it is rarely enforced. The minimum doctor's fee for filing out a police medical form is 300 cedi, an equivalent of $40, twice the average monthly earnings for a worker. One victim and her uncle told BBC Africa that they paid for everything the doctor did in the hospital and that they were even given a receipt.
Measles cases jump 79% in 2022 after COVID hit vaccination campaigns. Measles cases jumped by 79% in the first 2 months of this year compared to 2021 after COVID-19 and lockdowns disrupted child vaccination campaigns around the world, according to data from UNICEF and the World Health Organization. In January and February, there were 17,338 measles cases reported worldwide, up from 9,665 in the same period last year. Measles is a very contagious disease that can be particularly dangerous for young children and babies. It spreads more quickly than Ebola, flu, or COVID-19. UNICEF Executive Director Catherine Russell described the immunization gaps combined with a return to social mixing in the wake of the pandemic as a perfect storm. Now, at the start of April, 58 campaigns in 43 countries were still postponed, impacting 212 million people, mostly children. 19 of those campaigns are for measles, putting 73 million children at risk, UNICEF and WHO said. Immunization campaigns for diseases like typhoid and polio will also be disrupted.
Now, in Sudan, former top Sudanese officials released from detention, lawyers say. Former Sudanese Sovereign Council member Mohamed Al-Faki Suleiman and other top politicians have been released from detention, lawyers confirmed on Wednesday. Suleiman, along with prominent figures as well as former cabinet minister Khalid Omer Yusuf, who was released yesterday, were all arrested earlier this year on corruption charges stemming from their work on a committee working to dismantle the country's former regime. Military leader General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan had hinted at releasing the men as a trust-building move, one of the several steps demanded by Western countries and political parties. The civilian coalition they represented, which had been sharing power until an October 25 coup by the military, described them as political detainees, a charge military leaders who were critical of the committee's work deny. The case against the men remains open, the lawyers have said.
That brings us to the end of our top stories. After the break, we're going to be looking at the waste management issues being faced in Africa's oldest democracy, that is Liberia. Stay with us. Thank you for staying with Africa. Good morning. Now, in today's focus story, we travel to Liberia's congested capital, Monrovia, where pollution has reached critical and even life-threatening levels. This report about waste management problems in the capital of Africa's oldest independent democracy was produced by Reuters. Have a look.
200 years after it was established, the city of Monrovia and other parts of Liberia are literally awash with rubbish. This is the township of West Point Beach, flanked by the Atlantic Ocean and the Mesurado River. Archie Gotv is a 34-year-old community activist and resident of West Point Beach. He views the lack of waste management as a full-blown and growing crisis.
We have approximately 60,000+ persons that live here. And owing to how congested the area is, sanitation remains a major challenge. As it is known openly, there is no system we have to address the issue of garbage, and so you find people resorting to coming on the beach. They get the garbage from their homes, they take it to the beach as a place of dump site.
People here live in corrugated iron shacks, grapple with flash floods, a crumbling coastline, and the deadly Ebola virus, Gotv says. And their environment is being overwhelmed by waste.
And these things are not actually okay. They pose a serious threat not just to the marine species, but also to us as residents. But our capacity in terms of addressing these situations are somehow limited, very limited. And central government is in no way having a kind of mindset or in any sort of a form to come and address the kind of plight we are faced with as community people.
1 million people call Monrovia home. Some streets are overflowing with rubbish. There are only 3 designated dump sites in the city center and few garbage trucks with sporadic collection times. Mounds of trash can grow 2 meters high and, at their worst, span an entire block. Monrovia's Mayor, Jefferson Koiji, says there are plans to expand the truck fleet and make collections regular, and that 120 waste monitors have been hired for the worst affected areas. But the problem must be tackled collectively, he says. Rather than putting all the blame on authorities, he stresses the importance of a mind shift among Monrovians.
Liberia is the only place where residents believe that their waste should not be paid for. They do not pay for waste. They just take waste and place it to a public place, and they expect people to come and get it out. And when they put it there, they say it is the mayor's responsibility to do that. And I think it's something that we trying to encourage them to readjust their mind, to reconsider their mind. I don't think it is that kind of a mindset. It's not in alignment of good citizenry.
Foreign diplomats have criticized authorities in Monrovia for half-hearted clean-up measures, drawing fire from officials like Koiji, who points to inadequate donor support. But some fed-up residents have taken matters into their own hands. Businesswoman Vivian Bhatti hired a group of young men to clear the trash from some of the busiest streets ahead of Liberia's recent bicentennial celebration.
thinking, what can I do in my own capacity? Because my institution always go about awareness for sanitation and hygiene. So I decided to give a route of this day that will be or to showcase the cleanness and uniqueness of Liberians.
But he believes everyone's help is needed to start turning the tide.
Us Liberians have to take on the initiative to see how we can be able to preserve our waste and garbages as in a manner in which that when you go to the dump site, you'll not see it floating all around. And we'll not just take type from the home and put it anywhere in the street. And another challenging part is that people don't buy your idea. What do I want to do something free? That's what everybody tell me. So I was like, it's not free because you have to showcase what you have in your package before somebody can see it.
Growing mountains of garbage, drowning populations is not a problem unique to Liberia. Many African countries and cities are experiencing similar and even worse challenges.
Thank you for staying with us. Now, the Namibian Economic Freedom Fighters parliamentarian Kalimbo Ipumbu says that the country's labor minister, Utoni Nuyoma, should be removed from his portfolio as he has not advanced the interest of the people of Namibia and cannot be compared to his revolutionary father, Sam Nujoma, founding president. This was during a press conference held by the Namibia Economic Freedom Fighters, and NMH journalist Ogone Klage was there. Let's have a look.
Has been aided to run on the bandwagon of his father's name and never on meritocracy. He remains the same man that sold out land to the foreigners. Remember, just a few years back, when he sold a farm here to these Russian men, and this is the same person who is protecting the white monopoly capital in exploiting our workers. It is under his hand that Namibians continue to be molested by the Chinese national. It is under his stewardship that we have a labor crisis in the name of international conventions. The bundle of joy has never worked for anything as privileged political elite. NEF leadership will consider other avenues to engage the technical staff of the ministry to ensure that the pride of our workers and their issues are addressed. Issues that are really affecting the labor sectors. It's somebody that has a position within the Republic that needs serious attention. That position needs somebody with the capacity and with the enthusiasm heart of the people of the Republic. It's a position that needs to be occupied by somebody who is competent, somebody who will see to things how they are, and also use common sense in order to elevate or enhance our people's growth economically. These employers enjoy close relations with the ruling elites and enjoy proximity of power. Do we beg to ask what the role of the ministry is to ordinary employee who doesn't belong to a union? Even what is termed as the minimum wage doesn't meet the inflation rate. Here we want to caution the employers, and we are sending a very strong message to them to say, Namibia economic freedom fighters wish to caution employers on their neoliberal posture that is being messaged by the political elite, that our approach remains non-confrontational, We remain a radical movement that advances robust debates on issues of national interest. The goal is to ensure that we have harmonious relations to address and elevate the challenges of business owners to relevant authorities. NEF strives towards a flourishing economy with stable job security, hence our recognition of the private sector role. We, however, will not allow the leadership to be respected by the white monopoly capital, white arrogance, white dominance, and white supremacy in particular. And black and political elites too must be cautioned and know that we shall not back down on the pride of advancing the position of the working class. Past 2.5 years, we have parliamentarians that are sitting there who have never even uttered anything. So this is a sign to say our people, our lawmakers, are not really on the ground to see to it that this is what is affecting our people, and to come up with measurable ways as to how to present matters that will contribute to a proper policies that will actually accommodate the living of our people. And we take this lesson in the word of Steve Bantu Biko, who says, and I quote, "The most potent weapon of the oppressor is the mind of the oppressed." And this is how our people have been taken. We tend to take our people as peace-loving people. And this is where the oppressor will penetrate and make sure that they oppress our people. We have pledged for massive, protected, sustainable, and decent jobs. That stands to defend the rights of the people of Namibia in upholding the rule of law. NEF stands to defend the rights of the people of Namibia in upholding the rule of law. NEF, being a radical socialist movement, has vowed to consolidate the ground towards socialist power, a state that is people-centered leadership. Namibia Economic Freedom Fighters is a fully registered political party with the Electoral Commission of Namibia and represented in the National Assembly, tasked with the responsibility to formulate, shaping, amending, and contributing to the laws of this country. The issue in various industrial or sectors remains employees and employers' relations and familiarization with the operations. The primary objectives is to elevate the issues at the sector level and be translated them into policies that can benefit working class to enable economic growth for the country. As a political party that believes in the principle of equal pay for equal work, these concerns fall within the scope of what we seek to represent and achieve as a political party.
Thank you for staying with Africa. Good morning. Friday is upon us and all of us are hoping for some fantastic weather. So here's the forecast up next. Close to 1 billion people have a mental health condition, and anyone, anywhere can be affected. In recent years, conversations about mental health have become more frequent. However, stigma associated with mental health conditions remains widespread. In this short video, Olga, Luke, Eddie, and Enoch talk about the stigma that they experienced following the diagnosis of conditions such as depression, anxiety, and schizophrenia, and explain how they are so much more than their mental health diagnosis. This video was released to coincide with the launch of the global rollout of WHO's Quality Rights online training to address the stigma and discrimination associated with mental health conditions. Have a look.
Hello, my name is Olga. I'm a voice hearer. I have heard voices all my life, actually. However, I have also been given the diagnosis of paranoid schizophrenia. Probably the most devastating label I've ever been given. I became this sort of shuffling zombie. I spent 10 years in psychiatry, completely given up upon, and was considered utterly unable to function.
My name is Luke and I have an anxiety disorder. My anxiety manifests at night when I'm asleep. I wake up in the middle of the night with a feeling of fear. I wake up sometimes catching my breath. I get this anxiety because of the pressure to excel in my studies. In a highly competitive environment, people often expect so much of you. Because of that stigma, diagnosis is often related with weakness.
My name is Eddie Kimani. In 2017, I was diagnosed with depression and anxiety. What hit me hard was the baggage and the labels that came with this diagnosis. So I ended up putting a mark of shame on myself because I felt as if I had failed not only myself, but everybody around me. And that turned to feeling like I did not belong because I felt I had something that was not accepted in the society. People did not understand me because I did not give them the permission to see what I was going through. So I was judged harshly, and that complicated everything.
Hi, my name is Enoch Lee. I've been diagnosed with clinical depression, generalized anxiety disorder, and have lived through suicide attempts and burnout. However, as I became more open with this diagnosis, and also in some of my work to build mentally healthy workplaces, I share this experience. I notice I start to get boxed up and identified as, here's a speaker who will talk about depression. And sometimes I feel like maybe that's all they know about me. It seems like they think about me as, well, she's the overachiever and she's afraid of failing. Of course she's depressed. However, I think I'm much more than that. And even in my speaking and writing work, I can do much more than talk about and write about depression. I'm also a social entrepreneur, and I know the perils of starting a company. I can easily speak about experience and leadership. There are many stories behind the stories we hear, and I really hope that people will take the time to listen to those untold ones.
Getting an overall picture of myself every time when I feel off helps me to make sense of what's happening in my life at that moment. I also revived a passion I had as a young boy, which is art, and now I'm positively consumed by it. So I feel like I'm fulfilling part of my purpose here and continuing every day to be the best version of myself.
People are more than their diagnosis. I choose not to be labeled with anxiety. Instead of being defeated with fear, I choose to stand up to it. As a law student, my dream of being a lawyer is bigger than my fear. Each person with a diagnosis has a story, and it's worth looking at.
I am working today as a psychologist, as one of the things I wanted to do was to help all the people who were told the same message of hopelessness. I'm a cat lover, an avid photographer. I'm very, very happy. Remember to reach out and talk to people, talk to others who have similar experiences. It can really help.
Thank you for staying with Africa. Good morning as we dive straight into your economic news. And we start off talking about money, as a report ranks number of dollar millionaires in Africa. The Africa Wealth Report 2022 drew from intelligence gathered by New World Wealth as well as Henley and Partners database of high net worth individuals comprising mainly of people with the title of director, CEO, founder, and partner. This data shows that South Africa has the highest number of dollar millionaires at 39,300, followed by Egypt at 16,900 and Nigeria 10,000, according to the First Wealth report by Henley. In the report, Tanzania is the only East African country with a dollar billionaire after it failed to identify such individuals in Kenya, Uganda, and other EAC countries. Egypt leads with $7 billionaires, followed by South Africa with 5, Nigeria with 4, and Morocco with 3, and Tanzania. In terms of wealth held by private citizens, South African citizens have the greatest combined wealth of $651 billion by private citizens, followed by Egypt with $307 billion and Nigeria with $228 billion. Total wealth refers to the private wealth held by all individuals living in a country, including all their assets, excluding government funds. Mauritius is the richest in Africa with a wealth per capita of 34,500, followed by South Africa with 10,970, Namibia with 9,320, Botswana with 7,880, Morocco with 3,380, Egypt and Ghana. Economic vibrancy and population size are the key determinants of average wealth.
Now, on a rather sad note, Kenya's iconic Hilton Hotel to close after 50 years. Kenya's iconic Hilton Hotel, a multi-story building that was once one of the tallest structures in the center of the capital, Nairobi, will reportedly cease operations in December. The hotel was built in 1969, 6 years after Kenya gained independence from the UK, and has been a landmark feature of the city. Its impending closure comes amid a slump in the tourism and hospitality sector arising from the COVID-19 pandemic. A number of big hotels in Nairobi shut operations, some indefinitely in the wake of the pandemic. Hilton says its closure is not linked to COVID, however. It told Kenya's Business Daily newspaper that its closure would result in some of its employees losing their jobs, while others would be redeployed to other businesses under its portfolio. Following extensive discussions with the hotel ownership, Hilton Nairobi will close its doors for the last time on 31 December 2022 and cease operations. A Hilton spokesperson was quoted as saying the hotel has 17 floors with a total of 287 rooms.
I might celebrate my birthday there. It's 31 December 2022. Let's close it off together. You turn 50, I'll turn 32. All right, let's move over. Mozambique's top agricultural exports in the first quarter. Exports of agricultural products in the first quarter of 2022 increased in value by about $80 million compared to the same period in 2021, a 87.56% rise, mainly fueled by cashew nuts at 28%, pigeon peas at 18%, tobacco 10%, sugar 8%, and bananas at 7%. Data from the Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development shows that in nominal terms, exports of various agricultural products reached $173.2 million in the first quarter against $93 million in the same period of 2021. Breaking down the numbers, data shows cashew nut exports to India, China, Vietnam, and South Africa reaching $48.4 million. Next came pigeon peas, whose exports mainly to India, China, and Vietnam were valued at $31.3 million. Tobacco exports to Belgium, South Africa, the USA, Zimbabwe, and South Korea reached $17 million in the first quarter of the year, while sugar, which is mostly sold to the United Kingdom, Germany, the Netherlands, and Belgium, generated earnings of $13.8 million in the period under analysis.
Now, Tanzania's 3 safari lodges among the best in Africa. Tanzania is home to 3 of the top 10 best safari lodges in Africa, the Africa Wealth Report 2022 has revealed. According to the report, Singita Sabora Tented Camp, Singita Mara River Tented Camp, and Beyond Plains Camp, all in Tanzania, were rated among the top 10 safari lodges on the continent. Also in the same category are Kota's 1920s Camp and Beyond Bataleur Camp, both in Kenya, and Sanctuary Gorilla Forest Camp in Uganda. The other 4 safari lodges are in Botswana and South Africa, where the rating criteria based on reputation for quality and service, location, views and scenery, authentic bushfeel, biodiversity, bird life, and wildlife experience. Meanwhile, South Africa was named as home to the largest luxury market in Africa by revenue, followed by Kenya and then Morocco. Major components of this include luxury hotels and lodges, cars, clothing and accessories, watches, private jets, and yachts. Major destinations for high net worth individuals in the rest of Africa include Marrakesh in Morocco, Cairo in Egypt, the Serengeti in Tanzania, Sharm el Sheikh in Egypt, the Masai Mara in Kenya, Livingstone in Zambia, and the Okavango Delta in Botswana. Gorilla safaris in the Virunga Mountains in Rwanda and the Windy Forest in Uganda are also popular.
You know, just listening to that list, it's an abundance of beautiful places you can visit in Africa. And I'd just like to add Namibia. I'm no expert. I'd just like to let you know that over here, it's really beautiful where the desert meets the sea. Next up, let's have a look at the economic indicators just before your sport.
Welcome back. Cricket, soccer, football, whatever it may be. Let's take a look at sports news with Ari Hogad.
Good day everyone, it's time for international sports news, and we start off with soccer news, and it's again the Champions League that's in the news. And a big game that was played in the week, it is Liverpool that played against Villarreal, and that game was played at Anfield, and it is the first leg of the 2 legs that is played, the semi-final, and it is Liverpool that came out winners against Villarreal. It was tough resistance from Villarreal. It was 0-0 at half-time, but in the end it was 2 goals from Liverpool that sealed it for them in the first leg, and they will take a 2-0 lead for the next leg, the second leg that will be next week at the Villa Real. So that will be a tough challenge also for Liverpool. There's just a change in the rules and the regulations, and there's no away goal rule that is in place now for the semi-finals. So whoever have got the most goals after the 80 minutes at Villarreal in the second leg, they will be the winners and go through to the final. The final will be on the 28th of May, and that will be in Paris. The other semi-final, the first leg was played between Manchester City, and they played against Real Madrid, and it was Manchester City that came through as winners in that first leg, and the score there was 4-3. Very exciting game. It was lots of goals, 7 goals in that game. So again, there's no away goals rule for Villarreal, for Real Madrid, that they take to their home ground in Madrid. So it will be the winner will be determined by who's got the most goals after the 80 minutes or extra time for the semi-final. So again, the semi-finals will be played next week, and the final of the Champions League will be on the 28th of May. That will be in Paris. Now, to continue with international sport, it is tennis news. It is the Madrid Open for women that's taking place, and big news there is that number 1 seed and number 1 in the world, that's Iga Swiatek, had to pull out of the tournament. She's got a shoulder injury. It's good news for all the other competitors, because Iga Swiatek is number 1 in the world, and she also won the last 4 tournaments that she entered and played in. So she's the player in form. Seems like the injury is not too serious by early indications, and she said that she will probably play in the Italian Open that will be in May, and it is followed by the French Open. All these tournaments are on clay. Other tournament that's being played is in the men's. It's the Stuttgart ATP tournament, that is, or the Munich ATP tournament, apologies, that's played in Germany. And there it is the first seed, Alexander Zverev. He is the hometown boy. He is from Germany, but he fell out in the first round. So it was not a good result for Alexander Zverev, the number 1 seed. And to make it even worse, he lost to an 18-year-old that's very highly seeded in the world at the moment. He lost to Dane Holger Rune, and Rune is a Danish professional. So the score there was 6-3 and 6-2, quite a comfortable win also for Dane. And it is Alexander Zverev, the number 1 seed, out of the Munich ATP Tour. And now for more international sports news, it is cricket news. And cricket news from England is that Ben Stokes have been announced as the new Test captain of England, the England Test team. So he is following up in the footsteps of Joe Root. Joe Root was a captain for quite a few years now, but he stepped down after quite a few bad results of the team, losing the Ashes in Australia and also losing a Test series in the West Indies. Joe Root played 64 tests, and he'll probably still maintain in the team as a batsman. And it's Ben Stokes. He's 30 years old. He's been vice-captain before in 2017 for a few tests way back then, but he's one of the best all-rounders in the world. He has got more than 5,000 test runs and 174 test wickets. He played 79 tests by now. And he's a New Zealand born, and ironically the first test that he will play as captain will be against New Zealand. That is a 5-day test that starts on the 2nd of June. And now to conclude international sports news is Formula 1 racing news. The next Grand Prix will be on the 8th of May. That will be in Miami. It's the first time they're going to be on that track. So it's a new track for all the drivers. News from Mercedes is that they say that they've done upgrades to certain parts of the Mercedes-Benz. They've been struggling quite a bit. In the 4 races, Lewis Hamilton have only been on 1 podium, and he's way down on the points at the moment. So according to Mercedes, it is to do with the undercar airflow. So they've changed a few parts, and they hope that will make a difference for both team members, especially for Lewis Hamilton. Lewis Hamilton is a 7-time world champion. So that's international sports news for now. Hope you have a great day, and we talk again tomorrow. Goodbye.
As always, we end the show with the highlights from today's broadcast, just in case you need a quick recap. So let's take a look at the highlights. Nigeria outlaws ransom payments, kidnapping now punishable by death. Moderna files for U.S. authorization of COVID shot for kids under 6. Man sentenced to death for stealing presidential escort car. In Mozambique, authorities detained 57 terrorist suspects in 2021. Africa seeing uptick in COVID cases driven by South Africa, WHO says. Report ranks number of dollar millionaires in Africa.
That brings us to the end of our broadcast. You have been with Africa Good Morning from 7 a.m. on DSTV channel 285, Gotv channel 94 and 1up2.com. The show repeats on the same platforms from 8:30. Now, if you have any opinions, any videos, something interesting perhaps you see over the weekend, by all means, DM us on Facebook and Twitter at Africa Good Morning. As we reported earlier, COVID cases are rising in South Africa, and generally there's a bit of a domino effect. So by all means, sanitize. If you haven't been vaccinated, do consider it and stay safe out there. Heading into your weekend, absolutely take care of each other. This is Ashwin Berry. This is Diana Master. This has been Africa Good Morning. See you on Monday.